Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am going to do something a little bit different here. Well, not really. I'm going to do a book haul, but I'm showing you all the books that I've had to buy for university this semester, kind of explaining why I had to buy them, as well as kind of go over what they're about, or at least what I can gather they're about. Excuse the mess, I literally just got home. So these are the books over here, which again I'm trying not to, as per usual, I'm trying not to, you know, destroy the stack. So I'm just going to go through, talk about them and everything else. Okay, so one of the classes I'm studying is children's literature. And granted, I didn't necessarily think it would encompass picture books, but alas, here we are. So the first one, excuse the post-it notes on like everything. I have to know when to read them by. But this one is The Wolf Story by Toby Ford and Izar Cohen. And this is basically all about what really happened to Little Red Riding Hood. So, from what I can understand, the perspective that we're approaching this with is an intertextual kind of analysis of this as opposed to the, you know, classical fairy tale, and then also comparing it to another book, which is Beware of the Storybook Wolves by Lauren Child. So essentially that's what we're going to be doing for those books. We're going to be comparing and contrasting themes, motives, everything like that. Yeah. And then the other class that I am doing is it's called Narrative in the Novel. It's another literature class. So I have to read a book every 2 weeks or so for that one as well. So these are some of the books that I have to read. The first one is Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf. I hope to God it's nothing like A Room of One's Own, because I really did not like that when I had to study it. But from what I can understand from this novel, you know, Clarissa Dalloway is elegant and vivacious, and when preparing for a party and remembering the ones she loved, well, remembering those she once loved, um, oh, wait, yes. So, Clarissa Dalloway is preparing for a party and remembering those she once loved. In another part of London, Septimus Warren Smith is shell-shocked and on the brink of madness, and it's basically their story together. And when they meet or converge at this party. It sounds better than A Room of One's Own, so I'm not overly anxious about that one. The next one is again for Narrative in the Novel, that class, and it's by Margaret Atwood. It's called The Edible Woman. And this one is all about... I mean, I'm approaching it from the gender studies scholar perspective. You know, Marion is determinedly ordinary, waiting to get married. She likes her work, her broody flatmate, and her sober fiancé. All goes well at first, but Marion has reckoned without an inner self that she wants something more, that calmly sabotages her careful plans, her stable routine, and her digestion. Marriage a la mode, Marion discovers, is something she literally can't stomach. So I assume it's questioning kind of gender norms around traditional marriage kind of expectations, which I'm going to enjoy that from both the literature perspective as well as the gender studies perspective. Next is Stardust by Neil Gaiman. I've never actually read this. We also have to watch the film for this. This is for children's literature. But I've actually wanted to read this for a very long time, so I'm not complaining there. Okay. What is this about? So, a young boy has lost his heart to a beautiful young girl, and they both see, well, the boy sees a star fall from the sky one evening, and he vows to retrieve the star for his beloved. It is an ancient oath that sends the lovelorn swain over the town's ancient wall and into a world that is dangerous and strange beyond imagining. I mean, it sounds almost fantasy. It actually does sound fantasy. So I am actually really interested in this. It sounds like something I would read just by myself. So yeah. Next is another children's book. It's The Wee Free Man by Terry Pratchett. Now, from this, it kind of looks at... what does it look at? There's a magical element to it, I'm assuming. One, because, there's a wizard on the front. But also, it talks about headless horsemen and such like that. So there's a monster in a river and a headless horseman in the drive. And now Granny Aching has gone. There's only young Tiffany Aching left to guard the boundaries to stop things getting through. It's her land, her duty. But it's amazing how useful a horde of unruly pixies can be, as long as they are pointed in the right direction and can stop fighting each other first. So it sounds quite comical, I think. But again, I think what's going to be the biggest difficulty this semester for me is approaching these books like a child as well as an adult, finding that kind of balance. The next book is Pookie Alira Is Not My Boyfriend by Stephen Herrick. This book is written completely in prose, so that will be somewhat interesting. I'm so excited because these are not going to take me long to read at all. The children's literature ones anyway. So it basically follows the stories of these children in a sixth grade class, their individual stories and what they obsess over. I think, like popular Selena obsesses over class comedian Cameron, while Cameron obsesses over Anzac biscuits and Pookie Alira, whoever that is. So, I mean, this one I'm not exactly that overly interested to read. But we'll see how we go. I think what would be an interesting video to make would be kind of wrapping up final thoughts after semester ends and comparing that to my next to nothing opinion that I have now. The next one is for narrative in the novel, and it's by Julian Barnes. It's a history of the world in 10.5 chapters. I can't read because they decided to stick a nice big sticker over the front of it, which is kind of frustrating because I do not like stickers that do not peel off without leaving sticky residue. Okay, so this basically, it's kind of self-explanatory what it does. In 10.5 chapters, this book essentially talks about the history of the world, from, the Titanic to the Amazon to Noah's Ark, Victorian era, American astronauts, etc., and so on. So I think it'll be interesting to see how it's portrayed in a contemporary as well as fictional, well, not necessarily, fictional account. But yes, that's one that I am actually interested in reading. Next is The Fire Eaters by David Almond. This is all about, his life is falling apart when he seems to have it all. So, his dad's ill, school is cruel, and the Third World War seems about to start, and now he's met McNulty the Fire Eater. So this is the story of 2 months in Bobby's life, a time of trouble, a time of miracles. That doesn't really tell much, but at the same time, it's alright. I guess I'll have to make more commentary on that later. Next is The Red Shoe by Ursula Dubasaki. Apparently this is really popular. I've never heard of it. but it basically follows the story of these three sisters, Matilda and her two other sisters, in the 1950s at the time of the petrol affair. Punctuated by the headlines of the day, it shows with unsettling clarity how the large events of the world can impinge on ordinary lives. And apparently it's funny, tough-minded, and tender. This, again, is for my children's literature class. Next is The People in the Trees by Hanya Yanagihara. I hope I pronounced that right. Funnily enough, this actually came with a trigger warning from the university itself, which kind of makes me more drawn towards it. It's a gothic tale. It focuses on a young doctor in the 1950s going on an anthropological expedition to find a rumored lost tribe. They locate the tribe. And essentially are coming across the possibility of eternal life. He kills one and smuggles some of its meat back to that. He finds a rare turtle that offers this longevity of life, and he kills it and brings back some of its meat. He proves his thesis, earns a Nobel Prize, but soon he discovers that, this miraculous immortality, in a way, does not come without a price, and there are consequences to it. So that sounds actually really interesting, especially in comparison to other books. Next, children's literature book, Mortal Engines by Philip Reeve. I had a friend tell me that this is not necessarily the greatest book. It sounds kind of boring. But basically it follows the story of young apprentice Tom, who is... London is on the move again. In the distance... so basically cities are on wheels and they're fighting each other for survival while, this young apprentice Tom is in the wastelands where a cyborg is hunting him down. Now, I have no idea why she wouldn't like that, because that actually sounds quite interesting. It almost gives me a series of unfortunate event feel, and I have no idea why, really. But, yeah, I'm interested to read that too. Next is The Air Affair by Jasper Ford. And this follows a literary detective who... basically a literary detective who is following a case around. Jane Eyre has gone missing. So there's been someone who's kidnapping characters from works of fiction and holding them to ransom. So Jane Eyre has gone missing. And it basically is looking to solve these crimes against literature and figure out, who wrote Shakespeare's plays and this, that, whatever. I'm not necessarily that interested in reading it. Not that I have a choice. And the last one is Nobody Is Ever Missing by Catherine Lacey. So, without telling her husband, this woman runs away on a one-way flight to New Zealand. She goes on a hitchhiker. She goes hitchhiking, and she becomes entangled in other people's lives. And as she journeys from the north of New Zealand down to the south, she's, asking what is she missing from her life, and is there anything missing from her life. That one sounds alright. It's not something that I pick up, but that's the deal with university. You kind of have no choice. But yeah, so that's all the books. I'm more interested to film my reactions to them after I finish the semester in November. So I personally am interested in kind of comparing my next to no opinions that I have now and giving a much more detailed response then. So yeah, thanks for watching. I hope it was somewhat enjoyable. But I'll see you in the next video, and happy reading, and until then, bye!